welcome to Literary Bites, a podcast of short stories with deep feelings and everyday inspirations, written and narrated by me, Cassie Hamer. The story for this episode is titled Frank's Labyrinth, a story that explores the joy and grief of parental love. So, what is a labyrinth? Well, it's not a maze in that a labyrinth has one ongoing path with plenty of twists and turns but no dead ends. I'm lucky to live near one of Sydney's biggest and most beautiful green spaces, Centennial Park, which is also home to one of the city's first public sandstone labyrinths. Because I walk in the park nearly every day, I watched the labyrinth being built stone by stone in the early 2010s. And for something that looks a bit like a helipad or an alien landing dock, it was incredibly intricate, which made me think about the stonemasons behind the work. What an unusual job it would have been for them, and the extreme care they took with it to produce a really beautiful monument, but one that is used as a place of spiritual encounter for meditation, prayer, or reflection. But as we know, beautiful public spaces can be magnets for vandals and violence. That's just the society we live in. And it's also the question that's posed in this story. What happens when violence comes to a place of peace and tranquility? I hope you enjoy it. And just a small word of warning that there are a couple of curse words in this story. Frank's Labyrinth. The dog is moping. Dull eyes, flat ears, slack tail. He's been that way since the job finished. What's wrong, Georgie boy? Frank kneels down. Want a walk, eh, boy? George's tail thumps slowly, but when Frank comes back with the leash, the dog whines softly and returns his nose to the floor. Not even a walk, eh, boy? The dog's fur is soft under Frank's fingers. Is it work? You want to go to work, Georgie? The dog raises his head, tail thumping the floor. In a flash, he's in the ute and sniffing at the air. Frank drives slowly, even though the roads are empty. This early, the clearing where the labyrinth resides gives him the creeps. Bats hang from the paper barks like gothic Christmas baubles, and you can set your watch by the black cockatoos and their 6 a.m. shrieking. He imagines pagan rituals, people dancing round in circles in hoods and masks. But the dog loves it. The place takes years off him. Look at him, darting about the trees and sniffing for God knows what, raising a leg, cocking his ears, a bloody pup again. Frank crouches in the grass, still wet from morning dew. He should be at home, finishing the headstone, but he's having trouble with the kid's name. The S in Sammy has no grace to it. A break might help, so Frank stays on his haunches, admires how the fresh sandstone gleams like a coin under the rising sun. He takes out his phone to take a photo. He's heard there are lots of labyrinths over in Europe. Tommy might come across one, and it'd be nice to hear from him. Christ, he misses that kid, even though he's 22 and no kid anymore. As Marie says, when Tommy's not working in the taverna, he's probably too busy having fun to bother with texting his parents. Frank puts the phone away. At 8 a.m, 2 birdwatchers, a man and a woman, turn up with drawstring hats and zippered pockets. They stand at the edge of the labyrinth, binoculars at ease. "Beautiful stone, isn't it?" says the woman. George runs up and sniffs the man's crotch. Frank taps the leash against his thigh. "Down, boy." He rises, steps towards them. "Sorry, he won't bite." "He's all right." The man keeps patting. They all stare back at the labyrinth. "I wonder how long it took to build," says the woman. "It's pretty intricate, a few months, I'd say," says her companion. "You think?" the woman squints. "I'd reckon a year." Frank clears his throat. "It took 9 months. I did the stonework." Both of them turn to him. In their eyes there is awe. Back at home, Marie's perfume hangs in the silence. Frank gets out his phone. "How about a feed at the Duke tonight?" he texts. The Duke of Gloucester is about the only Sydney pub that doesn't have blonde wood, and Friday is $15 steak night. "I have to work till 7, meet you there," texts back his wife. Back in the workshop, the tools feel easier under Frank's hands. The boy's name is nearly done. His parents want it on the grave by the kid's birthday, 2 weeks away. He would have been 9. Bloody cancer. At the pub, they chew their steaks like cows chewing the cud. But for $15, you can't complain. There's trivia going on next door, and occasionally Marie lifts her head to tell Frank the answer or something that happened in her day. "Where'd you go this morning?" She puts her knife down. "The labyrinth." "The what?" "That labyrinth, you know, the one I did." "Oh, right. Anyone there?" "Couple of people, no one much." She smiles in a way that looks like a question. "What?" He wipes his mouth with the napkin. "What?" "Nothing," she says with a slight frown. "We should do this more often." "Yeah, we should." He sips his beer. "I'm going to see Kel tomorrow. Sienna's cut her first tooth." Frank gestures to the mangled remains on his plate. "She'll be tucking into this before long." "Will you come?" "Nah, I need to finish the kid's headstone." It's different when your kid has a kid. The roles get changed. They don't need you as much. For babysitting, sure, but not the love. A baby's love is enough for anyone. Their daughter is besotted. "That kid was only 8, right?" Marie holds her wine. "Bloody cancer," she says into the glass. The next morning, once Marie's left, Frank takes George back to the labyrinth. The morning after that, they go again and again and again. After a while, it's a reflex action, like breathing, like eating. It's what they do every morning without even thinking. Frank thinks he could probably write a book of all the things he's heard. "Look, it's a helicopter pad." "Nah, it's the landing for an alien spaceship." "It's like a meteor. Is it supposed to be religious?" He's come to see the labyrinth as a truth teller. Kids career over it on bikes, exuberant, unconcerned. Some people stand at the edge, tittering nervously. Others stride the path like it's a mission. Some people cry, some pray. One guy kisses it. Whatever's in your head is what comes out when you walk it. Frank feels obliged to correct people when they call it a maze. He can still see Jilly, the project manager, standing knee-deep in mud, hands on hips, and glaring at him. "A labyrinth has no dead ends. You're not supposed to get lost." "Bloody hopscotch for adults," Frank would grumble. Now he wants to run into her, tell her he was wrong. But she's never there when he is, probably raising money for another labyrinth somewhere else. She wants them all over Australia. On a cutting winter morning, before Frank's even out of the ute, he knows something is wrong. The sounds are different. Usually it's just the bats, twittering with aggression. Today there are human, goading voices snaking over the grass and telling Frank to be still. He waits and whistles softly for George to heel. The door of the ute stays open. Whoever it is, he wants to take them by surprise. He creeps over the rise and crouches in the grass, George at his side. There are 3 of them, 1 at the centre of the labyrinth, 2 at its edges, hoodies shadowing faces, jeans slung so low Frank can see their arse cracks. But it's the voices that get him. He hopes Tommy doesn't sound like that, guffawing idiots. Then he hears it. the rattle and hiss of aerosol cans. The kids stand up and survey their work, laughing and high-fiving. Then they bend over to scrawl out some more. His beautiful labyrinth. Frank shoots out of the grass, running, yelling, telling George to sick him. Two of them bolt and never look back, but the third stays crouched down, smiling at Frank. His finger is on the nozzle and ink pours out of the can, making a melanoma mark on the labyrinth. "Fuck off, old man." The kid stands, squares up to him. For a couple of seconds they circle each other, fighters in the ring. The bats have stopped. George snarls softly. Frank is first to move. He dives at the boy, his knees skinning against the sandstone. Beneath his hands, the kid is nothing but bone, no flesh, nothing to cling to. It's like trying to fight his thoughts. But Frank is stronger and eventually finds himself on top, straddled over the boy's chest. "Drop it," he growls. "Get off me!" The boy squirms. "Drop it." "Fuck off." "Fucking drop it." The can clinks against the stone. "Why?" Frank presses harder on the kid's shoulders and grinds them into the stone. "Why ruin it?" "Because it's fucking stupid." "Why you?" Frank presses his forearm against the boy's throat. He wants nothing but to hurt him. He raises his fist. "Please, no!" The boy's eyes are bulging, wet and frightened. George barks and pants. His tail thumps against Frank's shoulder. "Please!" The boy breathes this out in a whisper, and Frank sees he is just a kid who knows nothing. He eases off. In a second, the kid is gone, and Frank sits back on his haunches while George sniffs at the graffiti. After a while, Frank walks around the labyrinth to take a closer look at the damage. He touches it. Wet ink stains his fingers. It won't be too hard to get off. The stone has a special sealant, and Frank has brushes in the ute. When he's done scrubbing and hosing, Frank takes himself back to the centre of the labyrinth and looks outwards over the black lines of the pathway that takes people this way and that, left then right, in ways and directions that seem counterintuitive. He gets his phone, takes a photo of the newly cleaned labyrinth, and starts a text. "Look, son. Look at what I made." Thanks for listening to this episode of Literary Bites by me, Cassie Hamer. If you enjoyed it, I'd love you to leave a rating or a review, and maybe you'd like to check out more of my work, including my novels, at cassiehamer.com. Thanks again for listening.